Hello, good evening, and welcome to the LFC Daytrippers. This is Winners and Losers. I'm Gav, that's Pete, that's Phil, same as last week, except this is a Tuesday and not a Monday. And the lads have picked a winner each and a loser each, and in the next hour or so, we're going to argue about them. We're going to work out that they haven't picked the winner and loser that all the people in the chat want to see, but we might get to them at some stage as well. Phil, how are you?
I'm using my periscope here to see what's going on.
Why is that mic up at your forehead?
Because I could put it down like this, and
Yeah.
I could turn it that way, I could put it back a wee bit.
I
I don't know what sounds better.
I can hear the spring absolutely straining in as you do it.
Doing.
Yeah. That's definitely one out of the studio. But how are you?
No,
Anyway?
it's not. Oh, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
I know it is.
Yeah. It's the one that we had on the mixing desk.
Correct.
Yeah, we had
how
it
are
back,
we?
yeah. I'm all good, Gav. We've had a good week of training. We're only 2.5 weeks out now from the race, so I'm feeling good. Good. Life is good. I'm hydrating at this moment in time. So
Good stuff. I like to see it. Can I ask you something quickly though? There was an Ironman competition on in Ireland over the weekend.
There was.
And
I won.
What the fuck went on there?
So well. Paseo said it sounded better. Where up here? See, it turns out, right? No, it doesn't turn out.
So two people passed away during this.
Yeah, this is tragic now. To be fair, right? 2 people passed away.
Because when I actually seen it, I said to myself, I actually thought, could Phil Casey be in that? And that's not a joke at all.
Did he kill those people?
It wasn't. It was like, could he be in this? Because I know you're planning loads of stuff, and I was like, could this be in one of the dates? But it looked like, I've seen a short video, and it looked like, how is anybody allowing this to go ahead?
So right. I'm not an expert when it comes to water safety and life saving and stuff. I'm not a lifeguard, so I'm not going to pretend to know, right? Mm-hmm. But from what I know of people who are involved around the event, it seems to be that they checked sort of earlier and it looked all right. And then by the time the race was meant to go off, it was very wavy. But there's a part that says that once you get past the wave, you know where the waves are breaking onto the beach?
Yeah.
Like it's relative roll that's in the ocean. It wasn't like there was breakers 5-10 feet at that point in time, right? So, but I think the confusion and the danger comes from the fact when people are going into the water, they're getting hit all constantly, and it was knocking bodies into each other. And they said there was meant to have been like a lot of concern. They'd cancelled. What had happened was the half Ironman was on the Saturday was cancelled, right? So they put the half Ironman back to with the full Ironman. They'd reduced the swim from 3.8 kilometers down to 1.9 kilometers because a certain part they said it was going to be too dangerous to do the full 3.8. So everyone was going in at the same time. So now there's an argument over whether it was authorised or not. Ironman, the event organisers, who are the international Ironman piece that was going on, are saying they didn't receive Triathlon Ireland's notification until after the swim had taken place. So if they hadn't received it, right, there was nothing to do with it. So I'd say, look, this is all going to be about liability and stuff like that. Sadly, what comes after it, and eventually there's an investigation that's going into it. But like I've seen not Ironman, but I've seen triathlons where they've cancelled the swim leg because the sea was too choppy, right? Yeah. Normally if it gets to that level of choppiness, it's very unusual to see an event take place. So yeah, it's very sad. A lot of people took part in it and finished it successfully. And to be fair, the Ironman 70.3 in Youghal is very well renowned in terms of what it is, because there's a hill in the bike race, Windmill Hill. That's a really steep vertical climb as you come out of the cycle itself. And that's after you've gone around Cork in terms of the hills and stuff that roll around there. And you've got this really steep hill, and there's like a massive crowd that come out every year to watch it and cheer them on. So like it's a real sort of proper event and proper known event in terms of the Ironman stuff. But like this, again, it's Ireland. It's the Atlantic Ocean. We literally just had a storm blowing off the coast on the Friday night. It seems to have been a big leap to do the swim leg, and that's from my untrained, unprofessional eye in terms of what it is. When anybody sees the pictures, it looks terrifying. I would have been terrified. I think it would have been enough for me that if I was signed up for it, to say, nah, I'll skip this, because yeah. You know, but I also understand the pressure you feel when you've trained and you've done all. You turn it on up, and they tell you the event is on. As a participant in an awful lot of these events,
there's a pressure to go ahead.
It's not just the pressure, but you're putting your trust in the people who are running the events. Yeah. So you're saying that they've checked it, and it's good to know what's going. So it'll be, as I said, I think a lot of us will be interested, particularly people who take part in similar type events and these type of events, interested to see what goes on. And it probably brings a lot of focus onto the organisers to have that level of responsibility and safety with it. So they could have run it as a duathlon. They could have just scrapped the swim part and done the bike and then into the run, which they've done in different triathlon Ireland badged events. So I know there's a couple where they've cancelled the swim leg to do just the bike run leg instead.
Yeah, look, I thought I'd ask you about it because it's something that you're into. But look, condolences to the families of the two people that passed away, and hopefully, like Kev O'Sullivan says, I think the inquest will nail down the timeline with regards to who knew what and when. Let me, P. How are you?
All good, all good. Everybody in Spain delighted, and that they got one over on the English women's team. So they're all buzzing
Watch the
off
game.
that.
Good game. Spain were impressive.
Yeah, they're at that war. There's a civil war between the staff and the players, so that's interesting to see. Spain, as you know, they're relatively new, democracy. So they still have a lot of old-fashioned ways. And most of the staff on the staff side are in. So it's creating a quite an agitating dynamic between the players and the staff. And apparently the World Cup was won despite the organisation. Which
I did see news around it when I was watching the footage. I was in a pub in Liverpool watching it, and no, it was a good game. Spain fully deserved their victory, I thought. Very good.
Any game that ends with English tears.
Well, I didn't mind. I was sitting watching it. I just it was a good game. I just liked it. I enjoyed the fact it was a good game. But Spain definitely come out on the right end of the result and deservedly so. In my opinion.
Sorry, just Tom Boland there mentioned the kiss. Just to quickly touch on that, that was the chief of the Spanish Football Federation. I think there's so much. They call them rebeldes sin causa, rebels without a cause. There's so much kind of agitating going on. It was if you watch the kiss, it was like a scene from The Godfather, like the Judas kiss between Al Pacino's character and John Cazale's character. It was a grab, more of a to hell with you kiss, to be honest with you. And I think more will come out. But apparently she made a statement saying straight away that she didn't want to be kissed, and she certainly didn't want to be kissed by him. So there's more to come from that. But Spain can't win, lose or draw without there being some sort of drama anyway.
Yeah. Right, let's get into this. Winners and losers. Phil, we're going to start with you. Your winner of the week.
Saudi Arabia FC.
Okay,
right?
Go on.
Not to go on it. Well, it sort of works on that level, Pete. So I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the City and Newcastle, and you look at Chelsea and the money that's been pumped in there as well. And the whole sort of story behind this is just vanished, right? It's a story now. I think it's amazing that Newcastle are portrayed as this David taking on Goliath, which is the football world. And this is at the same time that the Saudi Arabians are looking to put a team into the Champions League, promising to invest as much money as they possibly can into UEFA, which is obviously a way to buy it in the back door. And what will happen with FFP? Because FFP doesn't exist, and they won't make a blind bit of difference. And then throw in the fact that even though Saudi Arabia, Newcastle United FC, not Saudi Arabia United FC, even though they're not owned by Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabian national team have decided to choose St James's Park, which is obviously a natural fit to the natural habitat of Saudi Arabia as their European base for games in this international break, which is bizarre to say the least. Like, I'm stunned. I'm genuine. Normally, I am literally right, the most non-stunned person you can get when it comes to these things. But I cannot get over how easy it is for all this to be brushed under the carpet by the mainstream press. It just shows you how deep the pockets are. It just shows you how easy it is to bury anything that you want when it comes to buying off the press, buying off the house. It's absolutely unbelievable. And to me, it's ruining. We talked about it with Manchester City and Etihad, right? But this is to another level. And it's to a level that on the same day that there was reports coming out of a massacre of Egyptian immigrants on the border, right? They put out a big thing about this new, this walled city that this $6 trillion bill that they're starting to do, which buries that story in the main papers. And they also put out the story around how far progressed now they are with Neom Trojena, which is the ski resort they're building in the middle of a desert. A ski resort building in the middle of the desert. And all these things garner more clicks than anything else and just buries the other pieces that nobody wants to see. And for me, Gav, the ultimate winner, when I sat there watching the City and the Newcastle game, I'm just there going, none of this, nothing of real consequence, nothing of real matter actually matters as long as you're prepared to buy fluff, put it around it, package it up, and people are willing to just accept it. And I can't get over the acceptance of people in terms of how they are just letting, like, there should be protests. There should be mass protests in grounds across England against this. There should have been marches on, and I hate saying it, like, there should genuinely be marches against allowing this type of money into any league. It's not just the English league, it's any league across Europe. But the fans outside of probably Germany have not been interested because it comes back to tribalism, and all they want is to be the biggest, shiniest toy that you possibly can get to create this almost monopoly within a league that sits there. And as much as they're trying to be modest about how they're going about and spending money and etc., so that they're not going to do it as blatantly as, say, the Etihad have done it at City there. Like, we know that it's a matter of time until the big, huge manager comes in and they spend the big, huge money, because once Chelsea don't get pulled to task over their imaginary spending, once City don't have to answer their 115 charges, it's basically declared an open season on whatever the hell they want to do. It's declared open season. So when I said what I said, this is for me, Gav, is when I looked at it. It's to that this weekend, that match in particular, to me, was the ultimate position whereby it's just now accepted that Newcastle and their backing is this little David taking on the Goliath of football, when in reality it's not. It's something that, it's basically the culmination of a horrible sports washing approach to football that's gone on for the last 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, Pete?
Yep, can I just say, rather than shine a light, Phil is right, completely agree, but rather than shine a light and talk about the absolute disgusting nature of what the PIF do and the disgusting lack of equality and disgusting people that they are, I'd rather shine a light on NUFC fans against sports washing, because it's the first time that I've seen a group of fans, and it's maybe because they're Geordies, because they've been fighting their entire lives for their existence. They fought Thatcher better than even the Welsh did. These people fight. If they don't want you, if they think there's something wrong with you, they will fight you to the bitter end. Now, I'm not saying that they're the majority, but they seem to have the soul of the club firmly in their grip, and they're getting a lot of it. I would rather focus on them, because, listen, to give you another example in politics, you only have to look at what's going on in the United States, for example. When Donald Trump left office, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, took $2 billion from the Saudi prince. I mean, and it's not talked about. It's a bit like what Philip talks about. It's not talked about in American media enough. What they prefer to talk about is the possibility that maybe, Joe Biden's son, who was a drug addict at the time, maybe tried to introduce a few people in the Ukraine for the quid pro quo with no proof. But there is an absolute trail. I mean, it's not denied. It's been said, and even the Saudi prince himself, is on record saying that I have young Jared Kushner in my pocket. Basically, he said it. So, I mean, if ever you were disillusioned enough to believe, like I was, that there is some sort of people that want to do things right, no, it's been completely sold from under our feet, and it's been going on for quite a while. So I would rather focus on, and I would appeal to anybody out there who is friends with the guys who organise this Newcastle United fans against sport, because I'd love to have them on here sometime and start shining light on what they're doing. Because, to be honest with you, you can come to a point where you just accept it and say it's part of the game and hopefully it'll be our turn, or you can keep saying, no, these guys took a New York Times journalist and they chopped him up into 17 pieces and buried him out the back of the Turkish embassy. That's what they did. They routinely execute children, women at leisure. I would rather say, listen, you're not going to stop people from being for sale. You're not going to stop Sandro Tonali turning up at St. James's Park with a face as long as Monday because he doesn't really want to be there. But AC Milan just couldn't wait to sell him. He was their future and was like, nope, sold. So there's no point in lamenting that. I would rather shine a light on the people that really matter. And that's people like Newcastle fans, NUFC against sports washing. Let's talk about them and what they're doing. Let's talk about the people who've been murdered by these regimes, and let's not let those people and their widows and their families be brushed under the carpet like they meant nothing. Because that could be me. That could be any of us. If you step on the wrong side of these people, you will disappear. And people will just turn a blind eye because, oh, here's another 5 million for a local charity that you want to be involved in. Thank you very much. No, these people need to be. If you can't hold them to task, at least keep reminding them of the scumbags that they are.
Well, right. I completely get your points on what you are saying, right? You know, when you look at, if you take Saudi Arabia as a example, there's plenty of examples out there as to what way that regime works. That's fine, right? It's not fine, but you know what I mean. We've seen examples. And I don't want to say the biggest thing in this, because it's probably not, but the alarming thing for me in all this is that if you take it just on money spent or what way this is being worked, the organisations that govern football are looking on this and letting it go, right? Now, the argument can be had all day about where the money comes from, what the regime is, whatever, blah, 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 the toys and stuff like that. But for me, when I look at it from and you've both done it with football and a kind of political side of it, but if I take just the football side of it, what I'm watching unfold in front of us, in my opinion, right, is governing bodies absolutely turning this wheel, and absolutely right behind this wheel as they turn it. And that's a huge, like, I'm afraid to say biggest issue, because you get bleeding, attacked for that. But that is a major part of this. Okay, Newcastle United spent £425 million in the last whatever, and that's fine, right? Premier League clubs, majority of them can spend that amount of money. They just can, okay, because of the TV rights and everything else. The ties between Chelsea and Newcastle, PIF, Saudi Arabia, all that sort of stuff is starting to become quite blatant, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Okay, Kev mentioned the loan deal there for a young Chelsea left back to go to Newcastle, and yeah, you can pay us next year. This, now, if you remember, that's fine if Newcastle can do a deal with somebody like that, because they might be close to the FFP, and I'll put that in inverted commas. But this is the same Chelsea that were scrapping around to get rid of players a week ago in order to sign Moises Caicedo. What's changed? You know, the sort of way, like, they should be genuinely after signing Moises Caicedo and Romeo Lavia saying, we need money and we need it now. We can't wait a year before we start getting our 5 million a year. We need it now on the books. And that's the thing that turns up for me. You see people all the time, and I know where you're coming from with the Newcastle stuff against sports washing, but at the end of the day, there's nobody walking into that ground and saying anything, P. There's nobody walking into that ground and saying anything. There's nobody outside it, right? And if they are, they're being drowned out very, very quickly.
Newcastle fans are born in Saudi flags
Where?
At the Gallagher end. I heard
in the ground.
Somebody
in the ground.
Yeah, from whatever, maybe it was outside the ground, but they're born in flags. Right. And by the way, they're being called racists. They're not. They're not.
No,
they're not,
you see that's the thing. Like, and I've said it before. I've said it before. We're in a situation here where Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, wherever it might be, are the ones doing this at the moment. Okay, if America came along and done this, it would be the same thing. If Norway, Spain, Germany, Japan, whoever done this, you would have the same issue. It's not about where the money's coming from. It's about how the money is being used. All right. But I get Phil's point going back to it originally. All right. And we've argued this loads and loads and loads, and it's just going to keep rumbling on because, like Phil said, there's not enough outrage over it. But I go back to Phil's point with regards to the footballing side of it. Nobody's talking about that anymore because we are in a generation where, they're spending all that money, and it's just huge excitement across sports channels. 24-hour sports news channels, so saying they're about to sign this and they're about to do that. And you know, what is it? It leads to interaction. It leads to people clicking on stuff, and it leads to them making money. And once they are making money in all of this, it will never ever stop. Now, it probably comes down to principles, right? Have many clubs got principles? If this money came along, I highly doubt it. I highly, highly doubt it. And I include Liverpool's owners in that. I think if somebody walked in tomorrow and said, we're going to do what Chelsea, Newcastle, Manchester City are going to do, but we're going to offer you £6 billion to take this club, they'd be gone. The principles aren't there. The principles are then upheld by the people that follow the club. But at the same time, I go back to it. You're in a generation now where, what? These guys are going to spend 500 million. Who gives a fuck about anything else? That's where you are at the moment. And look, I'll keep banging on about it on this channel. People hate when I do. Some people hate it. Some people despise it. Some people like when I do. But what do you want? Do you want me to just sit here and fucking say, I know it's all good? And I've put it on record that if Liverpool are taken over by any state, and I mean any fucking state, Gibraltar could buy them tomorrow, I am against it. Because you are then we're in the realm of this is going to get messy very quickly, very murky, and your club.
You mean we're getting messy?
No, we're not. He's worth two. He
said it was going to get messy very. We're going to get messy very quickly.
Sell him. He's scoring 8 goals a game in America. But you know what I mean. Like it all depends where you stand on it. I made it clear where I stand on it, but it has to come down for me to governing bodies. But I left this on screen. Richard Masters, Premier League CEO, I think that means, in an interview in the US last month, said he wanted more sovereign wealth funds and billionaires to buy Premier clubs. They don't care where the money comes from. They do not care.
Gav, there's a point there, and it is true. It's Aaron Copboy puts it up there, right, in terms of what they said. And this is the logic, and this is where it's like turkeys voting for Christmas. If you attract in all the sovereign wealth funds and you attract in all the biggest states in terms of what it is that comes in, okay, eventually they don't want competition. People lost their head about the proposed Super League that was going to go on instead of the Champions League that was there, right? Mm-hmm. If you think that these wealth funds, when they can get their own toys to play their own game all the time without any fear of ever missing out, do you honestly think that they don't want to have their toys in the special league that only their toys can play in? Absolutely not. That's what they want. This is the absurdity of thinking that there is a great white hope in terms of either Manchester City or UEFA all came riding to save football's interest. They didn't. They came to save their own interest and generate as much money as they could from whatever fund or whatever nation state was offering the most money. And I know Pete makes good points around the politics side, but I keep coming back to the football side and why the sports washing exists and what their plan is at the moment. The plan is to drive a greater acceptance of the Saudi state on the international world stage. They want the World Cup. They want the big events. They want to bring football matches to Saudi Arabia to champion their state in the same way Qatar did it. And the same way Qatar did it with PSG, and they got the World Cup and they got all that type of stuff. This is now seen as a way to legitimize what you're doing and the development of your own state. And in a certain manner, you can understand it, but it's also a simple way to bury bad stories. If I'm a government, if I'm any government now, what do I look for? I look for something that can bury the bad news. Like, you take us closer to home, you take even here, if there's something bad going on, they look for the nearest olive branch they can grab, which typically is sports or something that they can all lash onto. We've got a 400 meter sprinter that has the chance of winning the World Championship medal. Every single one of our senior politicians would be lined up to shake their hands and be wanting to be seen with them, right? It's like when Katie Taylor won the World Championships or gold medals. This is what governments do to legitimize what they do and why they do it, right? Mm-hmm. So ultimately, when I said that these were the biggest winners, I keep coming back to it. And I don't mean to it's not to dismiss really shit things that are going on in the world across lots of different things, right? But when you have the media now starting to push that this is the David and not the absolute monster that's standing in the corner waiting to annihilate everything that's in front of it, right? That's when you know that the institution and the fund or the nation state or whoever it is has won, because that means that the media is now selling the story that will attract the attention that all it needs to get to is look at plucky Eddie Howe leading this Newcastle team into the Champions League, and he's got them to be competitive with the great Manchester City or the greats of whoever it is. And isn't it amazing the job that he's done? When, let's be honest about it, you know, if you lash 500 million in it, a team should be competitive, should be able to get into the top 6 of the league, with the exception of Everton.
It's not even the fact that Everton, yeah, but it's not even the fact you lash in 400 or 500 million. It's the fact that 400 or 500 million has a vehicle to be written off in whatever way you feel like it to start again. That's where the Chelsea stuff comes from. And like, you talk about Qatar and say Manchester United, and I have the belief that Qatar are probably looking at Manchester United going, oh, hold on, wait off here. We need to see what happens with regards to Chelsea and City before we go in there. Are they going to make a stand? Because I'll tell you now, look, if tomorrow turned around and the Premier League went, look, Chelsea have sold enough and they're absolutely fine. The City charges, turns out, no, nothing's happening. Newcastle will go through the roof, and Qatar will be in, throwing another billion on top of that United bit. That's the way I see it. But look, it's probably something that we leave for the minute. We might come back if anything ever happens on these clubs and sanctions and whatever else it is. P, your loser of the week.
Manchester United.
Okay.
Because somebody said a long time ago, and it stuck in my head. It was like, what a weird thing to say, that, you know, a snake rots or a fish rots from the head down. It's unbelievable to think. I mean, Phil and I grew up together, and we hated Manchester United, but we respected them. You know, they were. You know, they had old man Ferguson, and he was. Well, I did. I respected him. When I heard he was sick, I was gutted and all that. But had what happened at Manchester United recently happened under him, I mean, young Greenwood would be. And I don't want to touch on this too much.
No, I'm not going into Greenwood if you don't want.
But the young lad in question would probably be in Siberia or somewhere like that. He would be playing football. It wouldn't be a Roman question, you know, yay or nay. I think, you know, I only want to touch on this once. It's unbelievable that something like that can happen, and it can be, let's put our foot in the water and see what people actually think. Let's not dignify that stance and that situation anymore. That's a huge reason they're losers. But even bigger is what's going on the park, or rather what isn't. I mean, I look at Erik ten Hag, to be honest with you, and he's doing a physical impression of Pep Guardiola. He's dressing like him. I mean, he was already bald, that's fair enough. He's trying to come across like him, and it's just Solskjaer 2.0, tactically all over the place. From appointing a guy like Fernandes as captain and leader in any capacity, to the whole stance of you know, I heard people lauding him for not taking any rubbish, not, you know, getting rid of people that weren't working out. No disrespect to Harry Maguire, but if it's somebody else, you know, they're like, listen, they're paying him his loyalty money, and they're showing him the door, and they're bringing somebody else in. There's so much you could talk all night about why they're losers of the week. You know, not getting results is just part of it. But I mean, I was led to believe that Erik ten Hag was this great tactician. I just see somebody that is, again, another guy who's like, I have my way. You know, Marcus Rashford walking around with a face on him because he's playing through the middle, which he had been crying to play for you. I don't know what Marcus Rashford wants, to be honest with you. If I was a Manchester United supporter, I'd be very frustrated with him. I think, for me, for a myriad of reasons, Manchester United are absolutely unrecognisable from the club that I grew up being terrified of. They're a comedy show. So for me, they're the losers of probably many weeks to come, to be honest.
I'll let Phil go last on this, so I'll jump in.
All right, you jump in. Well, you jump in. I'm just going to get a can.
Yeah, go on. You go and get a can. You don't want to listen to what I'm saying anyway. Well, he probably has the earphones and he can still hear me. But right, I think Ten Hag's getting away with more. Right, and I think we're not just talking about deflective tactics on a huge scale with regards to owners of football clubs and stuff like that. I think the ownership stuff over Manchester United is a massive deflection tactic that's working in Erik ten Hag's favour. And then you hear the likes of Neville, who 2 weeks ago told you it was either Man City or Man United that would win the title, spend 45 minutes on Saturday evening explaining what Manchester United need and why they're not backed and stuff like that. But when I look at them playing, just on a footballing sense, if you're going to put them the loser of the week because of they've been beaten by Spurs the weekend, they actually start the game quite well. They attack quite well. They've plenty of shots, possession. They're a better team for the first half an hour, without a shadow of a doubt. Don't get the goal. I think they hit the post. Spurs end up hitting the post and the bar quickly near the end of the half. And then they turn around the second half and Spurs literally turned her up one notch and United were all over the place. And I'm looking at him saying to myself, he's bought Mason Mount and he's decided that he's going to stick him deep in the two. Mason Mount doesn't play deep in the two. You've got your man Anthony, who I think he has to justify. He's playing Bruno Fernandes, who's a really good footballer, but I get the leadership stuff. But then, even when Bruno Fernandes plays, he throws him out right to keep Mount in a 10 position. He has Rashford up front. He doesn't like playing up front. He wants to play off the left. He feels he's a left-sided attacker. That's fine, right? And I'm just looking around. Casemiro looks like he's lost a bit of his pace. And then you have Neville saying things like they need another striker. They've just bought one. They've literally paid 70 million quid for one. They need another midfielder. They've literally spent 55 million quid on one. Okay? And he's refusing to play Scott McTominay for some reason. When the big sense to me is put McTominay with Casemiro, okay? And instead of your back four being torn apart while Casemiro runs around like a dog with two dicks, at least you have two there because the other lads don't want to come back. So to me, tactically, they look all over the place, right? Harry Maguire's not leaving the club because Harry Maguire's entitled to a lot of money from Manchester United. Gary Neville spoke to the night and he went, like, they're telling us that they can't get anybody else in unless they get bodies out. And said it in a way where it was like, isn't this ridiculous? But it's not. Any business is not going to just keep loading itself with supposed assets while other assets sit there rotting away, losing value because you've signed these ones over here. And you know that these lads that you don't want to play you're never going to get the money for them. And you will get even less if you keep filling their positions over and over again. To me, it's, look, Ten Hag might work out well for United, but I don't know. I don't know if he will. And right now, I don't think there's enough of a spotlight on him because everything, and every point that's being made is caveated with the Glazers and this, that, and the other. They've spent another, I would reckon, 170 to 180 million this summer. Okay, when you look at that forward, Mount and the goalkeeper, I'd say it's somewhere close to that. Okay, and now, like, God forbid, we need to get a couple of boys out here if we want to bring one or two in. Like, why is that so alien to people? I think he's getting away with murder. And, let's see how it progresses. Phil?
He's a spoofer.
I would always educate on caution because they started really slow last year and everyone thought Ten Hag was going to be 10 games and gone, right? Jumping in 2 feet, as we found out at the weekend, can get you a red card. And what I would say is that while they look a bit all over the shop, last year they started off a bit all over the shop and did well throughout the course of the season and would have finished top 4 regardless of whether we were on a great season or a poor season because they got enough points to finish top 4.
What
in a general season,
feel is they're flat track bullies because they haven't won. They haven't won in 9 games, I think, against top 6 opposition. They haven't won one of them.
And there's Pat the Butcher there jumping in. Eddie Howe's done a way better job at Newcastle of spending one go
and completely winding you up.
Definitely. Yeah,
I can't believe you, bit.
No, I'm just saying. It's he's doing a great job there. Yeah. Thanks, Mohammed bin Pat Butcher. Anyway, right. For me, anyway, the United show as losers of the week. I think Pete's mad. To be totally honest with you, right? There's like at this stage.
You're gonna have to really, really sell this one, Phil. I mean, come on. I saw it as a package on and off the park. I mean, losers of the century for the position on. Don't get me started for the position on the.
But we're not going. As Gav said, we're not going into it, right? But I've seen clubs make absolute hames of situations, and our own club make an absolute hames of situations as well, and be just managed bad from the top down. And to me, when you said that this isn't United, it is. It is. There's a period from 1990 to 2010 where it's the Ferguson era, and that's United. That's your reference point. But Pete, you're the same age as me. We saw United before that, right?
Yeah,
We've, we've seen United since that, and that United is the exact same as the United we're seeing at the moment.
yeah,
So my point is that this is what they were before Ferguson, and this is what they are after Ferguson.
yeah.
And to think of them still as the ultimate baddie at the end of a level is not true. They haven't been that for the best part of 10 years now. They haven't been anywhere close to that at the best part of 10 years. There's a memory that these lads used to be the ultimate leveler at
It's
the end.
10 years
right?
since he won the title.
But this is my point, Gav. Do you know what I mean? We're scarred by what we witnessed from 1990 to 2010, essentially, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
92 till 14, I would say, yeah.
14 in terms of what it was, right? A 20-year period that really, really got to us. But if you take the periods before then and the periods since then, you're looking at a club that was poorly run, okay, and that had a legacy of having a sustained period of success, which is exactly what we're talking about. So, and if you talk about it from our point of view, that's where Liverpool also gets its name. But we've had weird success across all that time period in terms of that we've always been in existence with, no matter who was top of the league, we always challenged some mad team, right? And we always managed to get ourselves into European Cup finals. That's what makes Liverpool so unique. No matter how bad they were, once they got into Europe, they always seemed to challenge at the top table, no matter what, right? It just seems to be this, it's our unique selling point that we always challenge. I'm genuinely hoping that we go on a run and win the Europa League this year, because it's the one trophy Klopp hasn't won, right? So I think it's great that we're in it. And people won't agree with me, but I think it's great if you could just do a clean sweep. I'd be absolutely delighted if you win every single trophy.
We're doing it, might as well win it. You know what I mean?
It'd be brilliant, right? But when you say that, I don't, because I look at so many other things that have gone on. If you talk about purely football, and you look at other clubs that are sitting there that have, like, to have them loser of the week and not have Chelsea loser of the week. Chelsea were destroyed. They've spent $500 million in a week, right?
You see, I wouldn't have picked that either of them. I'd have picked.
No, but
I'd have actually went, like, I'd have broke out 6 cans and went the PGMOL again, just for the sake.
Hang on, but we've already got this, so you'll see what'll happen now in a few minutes, Gav. But my point is, right, when we talk about that, I just keep coming back to, this is what we've come to expect from a David Moyes United team, from a Mourinho United team, from a Solskjaer United team, from an Eric Ten Hag United team, from a Louis van Gaal United team. Like, what's the big difference? I don't mean that in a very condescending, smart way.
I fully agree with you, because the process rolls on. The process rolls on where they continue to spend loads of money, players turn up, and it's like, why is he playing deep? Why is he playing there? Why is he playing there? But again, I get what you're saying. Like, you know, they finished top 4 comfortably last season. I completely get that. What they've actually turned themselves into is a team that looks at the bottom 13 and says, let's take as many points as we can and forget the rest. Forget the other 6 up to, you know what I mean? Because, yeah, the other 6 teams. And, you know, what happens, but we'll make top 4 that way. And that feels a bit Arsenal to me. You know, that's what Arsenal done from probably 2010 right up to 2016, I think. But the thing is, like, it just motors on at the same sort of thing. That's what I'm saying. And don't get me wrong, we could be sitting in 6 months going, geez, they're well in the top 4, easy. But when you look at the results and what this fella's being brought in to do, and what he's spent and how they've brought this thing across, like, takes no messing, does this, and I'm going to go on. Yeah, but it's still all the same. It's still the fucking same outcome. Same thing coming out of the fucking oven. It's still the same shit. Do you know what I mean?
He takes plenty of messing.
He's been put across. He's being put across in a different way. But look, I get where you're coming from, and why did he pick that as the loser of the week? But I kind of get it at the same time, because it just feels like why this is just going on and on and on, and the stuff outside of what's on the pitch seems to just shelter I think what's going on it. Pete, staying with you. Winner of the week.
Brighton, I picked. I mean, it seems like, listen, they haven't played the best teams. They've played Luton, I think, hammered them 4-1. And who did they hammer? Force Day 4-1 as well.
No, they beat Luton 4-1 on the first day, and they went and won away at Wolves 4-1.
Yeah. Now, probably both relegation fodder. But you got to get the job done. You know, they've sold arguably supposed to be their best player in years. And they seem to be targeted for, for more players to get out the door. But James Milner's gone in there and he's done what he's been asked to do. A young Solly March, who looks like an international player. It's mad. I know. Listen, they say teams like Brighton are greater than the sum of all their parts, and I think it's right in there. I think maybe I should have went for De Zerbi as a coach. It's incredible to watch what they're capable of doing under him. To be honest, I heard of him and I heard, he pulled up trees in Serie A and all this. I wasn't really convinced, but my God, it's very difficult to stop football when it's played correctly. You know, a lot of people try to position, the big spending coaches like Eddie Howe, Pat Butcher, and this is what annoys me about when Pep Guardiola is labelled a genius. Real genius is taking people that can do things and improving them, like what Klopp has done before when he was at Mainz, when he was at Dortmund, and arguably with us, obviously. But I think De Zerbi's in that mould. I think he's in that mould. He's very good at going in, seeing what you can do. I mean, Lewis Dunk looks like a world beater. It's insanity. And it doesn't matter who seems to be in the middle of his midfield. They just look like they're 2 and 3 steps ahead of everybody else. Whereas Moise Caicedo looked like he hadn't seen a ball.
I know, but Moise Caicedo's played 20 minutes for Chelsea. Like, he's come on into a team that...
that was great crack.
It was great crap, but then you're going back to being too early on United. Like, Moise Caicedo's a brilliant footballer.
But still great.
Okay, well, let me defend that. If you're a brilliant footballer, you're going into a cauldron. It's a difficult game. West Ham absolutely despised Chelsea probably more than anyone else. Just get in there and keep it neat. A bit like Endo. Just went in and kept it neat and tidy, did what he needed to do. If you...
Did you say he's going into a cauldron? All I saw in my head was Gargamel in the Smurfs like this. The head just going around in circles like this.
I think getting back to Brighton though,
but Brighton, Gav, as winners.
Like,
doesn't matter who plays. They play the same way. Do you know he's great bottle? I watched Crystal Palace at the weekend as well, and they've so many gifted footballers, but they've been told to bypass most of them and hit Edouard here. And Edouard doesn't want to be hit there. He might be a big lad, but he wants to defeat and he wants to turn people and he wants to finish like he did at Celtic. And as much as I respect what Roy Hodgson did at the end of last season, it was very much needs must. Now you've got a clean slate. You've got a squad full of gifted players. I know you've lost one of them, Zaha, but you've a squad full. Go and play football. And he refuses to do that. He refuses. Whereas De Zerbi, he doesn't seem to care who's in the 11. They're going to play his way. They're going to play it out from the back and they're going to beat you with the football. Because of him, Brighton are my winners of the week.
Chris Brack says Everton are my winners of the week, especially Tarkowski's post-match interview made me laugh. I didn't see that, so if anybody wants to hit me up with a link to that, you know where to find me, because that would be amazing over a cup of tea in about 20 minutes. By
the way, they're gone.
Phil, well, Everton might come up again. They play Wolves this weekend, so a defeat there, and we might dedicate a show to them on Monday night. But Phil, like, in all seriousness, Brighton are very impressive. And I know they've beaten Luton and I know they've beaten Wolves, but the thing that impressed me most about them is they're brilliant in the market, both selling and buying. They have a structure there at the club with a sporting director / owner, managing director, whatever they're calling themselves.
Do you know who the sporting director is?
They have a clear idea.
Do you know who the sporting director is?
David Weir.
He was a player, wasn't he?
David Weir.
Yeah. So, but they have a clear idea of what they want to do before it's done. And what I mean by that is we might lose this fella. This is what we want to do, and they're bang on the money. The outlook that manager has is really, really good. And like I agree with Pete, no matter who's in the 11, he has a way of playing. It's very, very brave for a team that you would consider probably somewhere between 7th and 10th in the league. I think it's extremely brave. It will be a lot easier to be more cautious to make sure you don't get dragged further down that division and get yourself into trouble. But I'm kind of glad. I don't think it's the biggest result of the weekend with regards to how impressive it was because of the opposition. But I'm kind of glad Brighton got a mention because everything they do, in my opinion, you just look and you go, you know what, fair play to you. Phil.
There's no plan B. They just do what they do. It's great to watch.
Listen, for me, I think what they're doing is great. No disrespect in any way, shape, or form. It's very impressive that they've managed to turn over staff and players, even sporting directors, because their sporting director now, the original sporting director that we've witnessed over the last 3 years has gone to Newcastle and has gone in there, right? And David Weir's taken over after spending 12 months sort of shadowing him in terms of what was there. So that's impressive. They've got a great structure in place in terms of their scouting and recruitment, which is what we had. I come back to what we talked about last week, Gav. They are following a very similar statistical model to what was in place at our club, right? That's been adopted by so many clubs across the Premier League because of the results that Liverpool got out of it. The Premier League is very much, and football in general, and sport in general, is a copycat league. So what works really well somewhere will be adopted and changed and improved on by whatever, like all this inverted fullback stuff that you hear them talk about by Pep. That's just a rehash of something that was done before. Even the original tiki-taka in Barcelona was a rehash of the Dutch system, which is a rehash of the Hungarian system. So it is just about repeat with a little twist all the time, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. Brighton will have their period, and then their bits will be poached, as we've seen, and it's how good you replace those bits that get poached, essentially. They have to live in the mid-table, and I think what they've done is amazing getting into the Europa League, but they'll be happy finishing either from 7th to 14th. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's where they're going to be able to live with, because they're going to be in continual transition to what they are as a club. As winners of the week, again, going back to, at this stage of the season, for me, a great result that you see is fantastic, but like, why them over, say, West Ham?
Because the manner, like I said, I look at him and I think I don't think that guy cares. Like, you'd hear another manager whinge and moan, "Oh, I'm losing."
So hang on, Pete, hang on.
Just
but how can you say they don't care? They came off winning the GM Vauxhall Europa Conference last year, right? Moyes has finally won a trophy, so they had to take the statue down in Taft's Tavern, right? This is from what they like. I just don't see. It's very hard for me at the moment to pick a team as winners of the week, right?
I'll tell you one thing. No, you're right. I'll give you one thing though. West Ham could have got it from me by the signing of James Ward-Prowse alone. If you're a team that only sees about 25-30% of the position, he is per game. He is the perfect sign. I tell you why, because he brought the best out in, who's the lad that runs around a lot up front with the muscles?
Oh, Antonio.
We brought the best out in him, and if you're going to have the ball much less than the opposition, you might as well give it to someone like James Ward-Prowse, who will pick a pass for you. And for me, you're right. I could easily have went for West Ham for that reason. But it was just, I was too focused on Chelsea just getting turned over. But you're right.
I think maybe it's not. Maybe when you're picking Brighton, it's not winner of the week. It's probably just someone that continuously impressed you, and you think I'd like to speak about them. I think that's where it probably comes from. Right, listen. With 10 minutes left, Phil, loser of the week.
The English football.
Okay, go on.
It's a generalisation, as you can imagine, because that's me in a nutshell, right? This stems from, and I know it's amazing tonight that McAllister's red card was rescinded without having a public march against what was going on. But ultimately, English football, forget about the sports washing element, right? It's an institution, and sadly, the rhetoric that exists within the methodology of England is to defend the institution above all else, which has left us with a situation where the game is governed by deeply incompetent people with no competition and no sense of accountability or responsibility. You look at what happened on Saturday in our match, and you see that you have a referee give a red card for something which is as innocuous as can be. There was no malice intended in the challenge. You could even see it in real time. whatever about that, you have the VAR assistant not advising that there was a clear and obvious error in the decision to send them off, which there was. And then it takes until today for that to be overturned. It means nothing in the grand context because we won the game. But it does mean everything because there wasn't a single person out there that was expecting that red card to be overturned. Because if you wanted to slow it down and look for intent, you could easily find intent with him raising his boot in terms of that was going in for the tackle. We've seen the mentality of the referees from your man that was on BT. It's to round the carts. It's to round the wagons. There is a persistence with rewarding in incompetence, essentially. The fact that Paul Tierney continues to ref in the league, the fact that Anthony Taylor keeps being chosen for Liverpool matches, the fact that we have a linesman who attacked one of our players that's allowed to be the VAR and be a linesman in those games. You go to the Arsenal Crystal Palace game. Did you see the sending off that happened in the Arsenal game? Outrageous that the Arsenal player was sent off for an imaginary pull that never happened. VAR didn't overrule that. And why is that? Because again, the mentality is to protect the institution. And as long as you're prepared to protect the institution and not prepared to look for improvement, look for enhancement, and look for improvability, you will always end up down the path that we've seen time and time again, whether it's been at the political level, whether it's been at the social level, when it's been at the sports level. Defend the institution at all costs. The referees, you look at most of the leagues that are progressing with VAR and progressing with the conversation, it's that they've mic'd up the referees, right? They've mic'd up the referees so as you can hear the decision making that's going on with the video assistant referee, with the conversations they're having on the pitch, so as that the fans, the players, there's no sheltering from the decisions. That's responsibility. That's accountability, Gav, right? As long as you keep these conversations hidden, as long as you keep going on. Like I put out a tweet there, and I genuinely mean it. This is a personal opinion, so it's not a matter of fact or anything. I'm not saying it's fact, right? But you cannot convince me that these guys are competent. You cannot convince me that there is definitely no cases of the impact gambling going on in these places, because the one person that can impact the result, there's three people on the pitch that can impact the result, right? They're the three people that can have a direct impact on the result. You can raise a flag, you can send the player off, you can give a penalty, and going back to again, as long as it's clear and obvious about an error that somebody's made, what's the point? You put incompetent people in charge of the technology. You put incompetent people in the middle of the pitch. You put incompetent people asking to referee the game. You reward incompetency when somebody's proved incompetent by putting them in charge of the same teams the following week, right? There is no accountability. Never have to put in the referee to explain the rationale, explain the actions. The week beforehand at the United match in the Wolves game, you have them coming out after the match and apologising to Wolves that they got the decision wrong, okay? That's no use. They'd lost the points at that stage. Those 2 points, if they draw 1-1 that night, right? They draw 1-1 that night in terms of what it is. Those 2 points could be the difference between a team staying up and getting relegated to what's going on. From my point of view, when we have the technology there, I don't want a PGMOL official running the video assistant referee. I don't want it there. I want an independent body. If an independent body can make a decision outside of what's happened,
They are an independent body.
On the VAR.
The PGMOL are an independent body.
Allegedly an independent body, Gav, right? They've come out of what was there.
Definitely an independent body to the Premier League.
I know they're independent to the Premier League, but what I'm saying to you is they've come from the institution that existed before the Premier League existed. It was the FA, they were the referees. Then it becomes the Premier League.
The fact that they're in an independent body is probably half the reason why all this shit goes on. Because, like, if
institution round the wagons.
Yeah, but the thing is, if they were employed by the Premier League, okay, the pressure on the Premier League would intensify. And listen, I'm not going to say an awful lot on this because I think what you've said is absolutely spot on. And I'll say I've said it before and I'll say it again. When you have that little grey area that you can all just hustle in and say, you know what, boom, everyone in here until this cloud passes, there's no point. There's absolutely no point, because we've got to the stage now where referees are making decisions. It's going to VAR and clear stuff is being overlooked. The Onana one is madness. The one on Tomiyasu last night is a joke. The one on McAllister, it's a free kick. There's no doubt about it. But why isn't this being shown 10 times on the TV? Because VAR are looking at it. And we'll show these replays while VAR are doing it. And it wasn't. It was one replay. He hands the red. And I'm waiting for McAllister to stand and wait. And he's walking down the tunnel. And nobody out there. Dermot Gallagher on Sky even said, it's the wrong decision. It's and listen, he has done amazing mental gymnastics on behalf of the PGMOL over the last year or so when he's on Sky. But even this one, he couldn't turn around and go, no. Well, actually, what he's thinking there is, look, there's two players going in for a ball. He hasn't stretched his leg out with his studs up. His foot is bent. His leg is bent as the studs are there trying to control the ball. He misses it. It's a yellow card. It's a free kick. Listen, we move on. But we're going to end up being the fucking insane ones here. By trying to rationalise, not even rationalise, but continue to question these people all the time when you just know that they sit with this little grey area where you don't have all the details and all this. Is this a directive from Howard Webb? Is this hold on, you can't just decide it's a directive and tell nobody. Do you know the sort of way? So I agree 100% with you on it. And
can I offer a solution?
I get rid of them all. That would be my solution.
Okay. Can I offer a solution? And a logical solution, right? What improves performance? Competition.
Yeah.
It's what exists in football, what exists in thing, right? There shouldn't be one referee's body. There shouldn't be one professional game match officials, right? There should be a second body, right? And clubs should be allowed to nominate which body they want to referee the matches. And I'm being straight up. And if it means going and paying for a referee from Germany or paying an Italian referee to come in or a Spanish referee to come in for individual matches, a team should be allowed to nominate, say, 10 games where they want an official from Independent Match Officials Association. Like just here, I'm not going to give a name, but you know what I mean? That forces the PGMOL to bring up their standards and then make them. I want to say accountable. I don't want fellas put up on a stilt and you throw tomatoes at them for bad decisions. But if we mic them up and so that we can hear the explanation and the decision-making processes that are going on the pitch, so as the fans can hear, so the commentators can hear it, right? That changes the logic and the rationale to what all the conversations that we have out there, because now we understand the decision-making process. Now we understand what they see on the pitch. This is not to get at them. This is not to get at them. This is to understand how they arrive at the decision.
Correct.
Right?
You're right. It's like it's too much of a Supreme Court, Phil, and they're far too comfortable. You know, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Accountability, they make it sound like a dirty word. Why should we be accountable to you? And again, it's protectionism, protecting the establishment. Why are they the establishment? It should be competitive, and they should be marked out of 10. It should be balanced. Somebody made a point in the comments that, you know, exchanges between countries. The Australian mic-up thing is fantastic, but they're terrified. And the thing that annoys me about what they do is they will send Tierney, they will send that guy with the elbow, they will send people who are suspected of harbouring grudges against Jurgen Klopp and the club, and they'll keep sending them to us because what they want to say is we don't buy into that nonsense. And because the minute they don't send them, people will go, oh, they're not being sent because there's a problem there. And this is the whole establishment in the UK. To be quite, it's the way they think.
But the thing is, like, it's not. VAR was brought in to reduce the amount of decisions that were incorrect in football. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, the amount of decisions that are made that are incorrect are probably about the same as they've ever been. Refs probably get it right 95% of the time. So let's not go on as if they're completely imbeciles, okay? But the issue here is that if I'm out there refereeing and I have to make 100 decisions in a game and I make 99 of them correctly and one of them is wrong, whether that's a red card or a yellow or I don't see a handball, they've put a facility in place where there's guys watching multiple screens, multiple replays and multiple speeds to be able to say where I'm able to say and have the balls to say it. Like, the ref should have the balls to go, I'm thinking of giving a red here, but can you just let me know if I actually seen what I seen? And then these people come along and go, listen, Mick, what you're seeing actually did happen, but not to the ferocity that you thought it happened in McAllister's case. It was very close to being, you know, a 50-50 ball where they both connected. It was milliseconds that he missed. The guy has gone down. I'd suggest booking him because the foul and the position it was in and a yellow card. Absolutely fine, right? But what they've done here is they've turned it into the decision being compounded by A, not checking it, B, checking it and deciding, don't hang me mate out to dry. Because that's the mentality. We're hanging this referee out to dry by changing his decision. You're not. You're assisting this guy who's watching a game going at a fucking 100 miles an hour.
So it starts
like you go and sit at Anfield 6, 7, 8 rows from the front and watch the speed of this thing. It's mesmerising how quick it is. And listen, no matter how fit you are, no matter how fucking many bleed tests you win, how many 20/20 vision, whatever it is, it's nigh on impossible to keep up with a Premier League game that has 22 other individuals running around and a ball being fizzed around all over the shop. I want assistance. But the mentality is, if the VAR has to come in and say to you, Mick, you got that wrong, all of a sudden, oh, my mate's fucking ratting me out here, and when I meet him in the canteen down in George's Park on Monday, he won't speak to me. You know, and that's where the issue comes from. And it's combined with them being able to fall into this bubble. And everything Phil says is right. Mic them up. And then, and people think that's a negative, but if you mic them up, the guy on the VAR can say, you know what you're seeing is right. What you thought you're seeing is correct, right? But actually, just the way it's happened and how quick it's happened is what's caught you out, really. You know, the sort of way. And that's all it is. But they refuse to line themselves with everybody else. They want to be this. They want to hold all the power, but they don't want to explain themselves one bit. If I go down as Wolves, I'm fucking asking the question. I don't want your fucking apology on Monday morning, right? If Liverpool draw that game and miss out on the title, I don't want your fucking apology or your overturned card. I don't want, no matter what club it is. As Manchester United fans, I'll be writing in on Monday and saying that tackle on Bruno Fernandes is studs up and it's up halfway up the shin. Why isn't this being picked up? It's not just the decisions that are made, it's the decisions that aren't made. And it's just going to continue on and on and on because they actually refuse to work. They actually refuse to work as a team and have more respect for each other as colleagues, right? You should have the respect for a colleague to say and be close enough to them to say, I will tell you if it's wrong, but don't worry about it. It's part of the fucking job. We all go to work and make mistakes and people say, you know, you're wrong there. And we just get on with it. Yeah, I was wrong. Fucking hell. I won't do it again. I make mistakes on this podcast and people go, that was a stupid idea you had. And I go, yeah, it was a stupid idea. We go again. Like, why can't we be like this in fucking referees? Yeah. It's just mad. It's just maddening.
It's cultural over there. It's cultural over there. They don't want to be seen as impeachable, and they don't want to be impeached.
Yeah.
And it's incredible.
Can I just throw a wild card before we finish up, Gav? Right, and I know we're 5 minutes over the time, right? Mm-hmm. But it just goes back to my winner of the week, Saudi Arabia FC. Right. I just want everyone to think of this, right, and remember my words. When the transfer window closes on the September 1st, the Saudi Arabian transfer window doesn't close.
Yeah.
And if you think you've seen mayhem to now, just watch what Newcastle United and Chelsea do by the back door by disrupting teams and players and clubs through the use of outrageous bids for players at the top clubs in England to see what they can do to ensure that they have the best piece that goes on. So that's all I'm going to say, right? I just wanted to throw that wild card in. That's amazing, a wild card as opposed to winner or loser.
No, it'll happen. You're right. It'll happen.
Anyway, look, we're going to get out of here. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. Put the bell icon on so when we go live, you will know about it. And thanks a million to everyone for watching. Thanks a million to P. Thanks a million to Phil. All the chat being excellent as always. We will talk to you tomorrow. Talk to you a bit. Over now.